Righto, up here in this tree, I found a pretty cool little nest of a very small little bird. Some of you may have heard of before, called a blue waxbill. Now we've tried throughout the whole of Sofa Safari to get blue waxbills really nicely on camera for you all, but they're just this big and they bounce all over the show, so it's a bit of a nuisance. Let me quickly turn down my radio.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just keep those drop.
Then I turn it up. But what we have here, if you have a look up there, Britt, is just a tiny little nest up there. And that nest is made by the blue waxbill, and the tree that the nest is found in is called a knobthorn acacia. And the reason why they like to make their nests in these trees is because there's lots of these little thorns that you might be able to see on each of these branches, little hook thorns here and there. And that stops things like raptors landing in the tree. It might stop a snake from coming up the tree and raiding your nest. And yeah, these little blue waxbills, they make their nests out of these dry little bunches or clumps of grass. And it's quite a quick impromptu nest. It's not the most solid thing in the world. But hopefully myself and Britt can get some blue waxbills on camera for you all so that you can see what they actually look like. Beautiful, beautiful little bird. Think about the color of a blue sky. Anyway. Welcome back to Sofa Safari, guys. My name's Luke. It's been a while since I've been on camera, so please forgive me if I'm a little bit rusty. But we're going to head towards the east today. We're going to see if we can find some ellies. We'll see what else we can find. Maybe another nest. Maybe that ever elusive blue waxbill. Stick around. You may have heard of a saying called a bachelor's stomping ground. You know, where a young man might go to his local pub. It's a stomping ground, looks for ladies there. And that particular name, from what I've heard, is coined from an animal that leaves something just here on my left-hand side on the ground. So let's climb off quickly and let's go have a look at it, nice up close and personal. And maybe you guys will learn a thing or two. Come on down, Britt. As you get closer to this little marking that I'm going to show you now, you'll start to find little bits of dung all over the show. There's a little bit here, a little bit down there, some in my hand. Not this one, this is the elephant dung. A lot of you will remember that, the big old balls. You can play soccer with that one, hacky sack. You got a little bit more dung over here from this particular animal. So you can see he's been a busy guy. He's been dropping a bit of dung here, there and everywhere. But as you get closer and closer to the epicenter, you begin to see where his main focus is in terms of where he drops his dung. And this is left behind, these beautiful grape bunches of grapes, I guess, you know, from the vineyard. Delicious, great vintage. But this is left behind by the blue wildebeest, and it'll be a male that leaves this behind. For all our European friends, that's a gnu. All right, I know I'm not saying that right. For all our Dutch friends, you're probably laughing at me right now. You all know how to say it, but for us in South Africa, it's a gnu. And for our English friends, you'll know it from that song, I'm a gnu. That's all the words I already know. But anyway, the wildebeest comes around, the humble wildebeest, the blue wildebeest. That's the one that you see crossing the Masai Mara and the Serengeti when they're out and about on their migration. But around here, they're actually quite territorial, the males, and even up there they are territorial, but they just become territorial over the square meter that they're moving into as they migrate. It's quite ridiculous. But in South Africa, our wildebeest don't have to migrate, and so what you find is one particular bull will become quite dominant over an area, and he'll have these markings all over his territory. Now, he's a bachelor by profession. He'll never settle down with a particular female, but what he does is he tries to have a very nice territory. You know, maybe some nice water over there, nice open fields for feeding and sleeping over here. And in doing that, he's going to attract the females who like those nice open areas for sleeping, those nice grasslands for feeding, and the water source for drinking. All right. So the better his house is, the better his territory is, the more chance he has of females coming through and actually sticking around. But what he does here is he'll come up to the ground, he drops dung, and if you come and look closely, Britt, with the camera, you'll actually see some, you know, old scraping there. And you know, it maybe hasn't been used in a few days. I can see there's not too much fresh dung here. But what he does is he comes and he drops this little bunch of grapes. They all hit the ground, and then he proceeds to stomp the ground. He kicks up dust and he does his thing and he gets quite carried away. Sometimes he rolls around in it. He has a proper little party, and that's why we call it a bachelor's stomping ground, right? He's a bachelor and he likes to stomp, right? The reason why he's doing this and stomping and getting carried away is because he's got a cloven hoof, which means he's got basically two toes that have split like that, just like a cow or kudu or impala, and between those hooves is a little gland, and as he does this, that gland is secreting his pheromone into the soil, and wherever he walks after that, he might trace his pheromone with him, his smell, his scent. And in doing so, other males that are coming into the area, other younger males will go, whoa, hold on, this guy's quite the manner, let's watch out, let's maybe back away, or another male that's thinking, I'm actually a bigger munner than this guy, let's find him and let's fight for his nice territory that will attract the females. And so the succession continues. Now, they can be quite aggressive, and in a few years ago when I was working in a different game reserve called the Pilansberg, which is about 2 hours north of Joburg, great game reserve, I did see 2 of these wildebeest come to blows over one of these territories, and one of those wildebeest, the smaller one, ended up having a broken leg from that altercation, and he got eaten by lions, I think 2 or 3 days later. So they can be quite aggressive, even though they are usually very peaceful animals. They're not hunters, they're not going to kill you, they're not going to hunt you, but when you're another wildebeest, trying to usurp the current owner of this territory, you better watch out. So wherever you see these things, it means there's been a wildebeest around and he's been stomping. And for all our English friends, you will have definitely heard that saying, a bachelor's stomping ground. And from what I believe, this animal is where that saying comes from. Anyway, let's carry on. Right, for all our bird lovers out there, we thought we would just stop and appreciate what is admittedly a very common bird in these parts. It's one of the starlings, and this one's known as a Birchall starling. And the way you'll tell the difference between this and its probably more common cousin, the Cape glossy starling, is this particular species does not have a yellow eye like the Cape glossy starling, and he's also got a fairly long tail in comparison to the Cape glossy starling. But between those 2 species, those are the 2 that we kind of find out in this area, just about the only starlings we find out in this area. But always nice to come across sitting at the top of his tree, glimmering in the sun. They're quite a tricky bird to photograph for us photographers, so if you are coming out, try and time it quite well. You have to wait either or get them early morning or late afternoon, just when the sun is at its dimmest. But there he goes, flying off, and yeah, let's carry on. Nice little Birchall starling.
Yep.
Right guys, this is Jeff, and Jeff is the stomper that I was talking to you about a bit earlier. This is the humble blue canoe. And I'm just joking, his name's not Jeff. I don't actually know this gentleman, I've never met him before. I don't know, maybe he's a Steve, looks like Steve. But yeah, so this is what we would call a dominant or a territorial blue wildebeest, and he is, given how far we are or how close we are to that stomp ground or bachelor stomping ground we saw a bit earlier, this is probably the culprit that left that behind. Quite a large animal. I mean, they can reach a good couple of 100 kilograms in weight, maybe a little bit more, and pretty nonetheless. A lot of people think they're very weird looking. I kind of like them. And if Brit's maybe zooming in nice and tight on his face there, you'll see that he doesn't only have those glands we spoke about between his hooves, he also has a couple of glands on his eyes or on his face, just below his eyes as he walks away there. But those are called preorbital glands, and he'll also rub those against trees in order to mark his territory, and a lot of antelope too. But there he goes, off into the distance to go and try and find some lucky ladies, and we're going to carry on. Folks, this is a bird that we have wanted to get on film for the longest time, and I don't think we have during our Sofa Safari escapade so far. And I know there's been a few requests for it that I've seen in the comments and so forth. So for all of you that have requested this bird and us show it to you, sorry, not to say that we haven't tried, it's just that they're often found on the road, and as soon as you come driving down the road, they kind of flutter away. So this one did do that, and I stopped, and then he landed quite peacefully on the road, as luck would have it. And yeah, he's just busy pecking around there. He's got one of his cousins behind him, but the bird that we're talking about, that Brit has in frame for you right now, is called an emerald spotted wood dove. And if the light is catching his wings perfectly there, I mean, I can't see what the zoom lens is seeing, you might see those little emerald spots on his back wings towards his rear. And those are those little iridescent spots that are refracting or reflecting light in a particular manner, which shows off that greenness, that kind of emerald color. Now, they are one of the doves, but they're one of the prettier doves. In fact, probably the prettiest, other than maybe a Namakwa dove, that beautiful little dove with the long tail. But there he goes off into the distance. But yeah, an emerald spotted wood dove. I'm happy that we could finally find it for you. And he's just flown a little bit up the road, so we'll see if we can get him back on camera for you. But yeah, for all of our bird fundies out there, I hope you enjoyed that one. Yeah, let's see if he sticks around. So there we are, we have him again, nicely in a little spot of sunlight there, so you might see those iridescent emerald spots. But the one thing I wanted to talk about is it's always so interesting whenever you stop with a dove or a seed-eating bird, is how you can just watch them essentially pecking the ground. It doesn't look like they're eating anything but little specks of soil here and there. And it's quite widely believed at this point in time that birds like this, particularly the doves and seed-eating birds, actually see an ultraviolet, which means that those little seeds that are all over the ground that we can't see with our human eyesight are sticking out like sore thumbs for these doves, and so they know exactly where to peck all the time. Every time that they're pecking the ground, they actually are hitting a seed, maybe a grass seed, maybe a tree, probably grass seeds 99% of the time. But yeah, in general, they are eating things, not just pecking at little rocks and things on the ground, hoping to get lucky and smash it lucky on a little seed or something every once in a while. So yeah, if that answers that question for you, then I'm quite chuffed. But yeah, we're going to carry on. We're going to leave our emerald spotted wood dove busy pecking around at the moment. Beautiful little bird. But let's see what else we can find before the sun starts to set today. You know what, folks? Probably for the first time ever on Sofa Safari, I spotted something before Britt did. So, small victories, that's what you got to count. But even though it is the largest land mammal on the planet, it's not a major point, but it's a point nonetheless. But yeah, we've just come across this elephant cow, and she's busy having herself some late lunch, maybe an early dinner. And her little baby is just over here behind the trees. Not too little, but he's somewhere there. And yeah, always nice to spend a bit of time with some ellies. And if you have a look at this female that's in front of me here, particularly from this angle right now, you can tell one of the easiest ways to tell that you're looking at a female elephant is to actually look at the head. So you can see how angular her head is there. It's just a straight up sort of forehead and then straight back. It's this very square sort of forehead that they have. Whereas the males, they have this quite rounded forehead. And the reason for that is the male's just a bigger animal. They also fight quite a bit. And so he's got just a bit more protection in the skull, a bit of a thicker, more robust skull. Whereas the females are generally more peaceful towards each other and not as testosterone filled and arrogant as the males. And so they don't really have a use for a big chunky forehead like that. But yeah, she's just enjoying herself, a nice little bit of dry grass. Of course, at this time of year, elephants won't be too chuffed with all the dry grass going on. They are quite picky feeders. But beggars can't be choosers, and whatever is on the menu right now to sustain yourself is whatever's on the menu. And that's what she's going for. But you'll see, like I pointed out in many episodes before, as she pulls the grass out of the ground, she's going to hit it against her legs, hit it against her chest, and she does that to try and get all the grit and all the sand and the dust and whatever off of it before she pops it into the mouth and crunches that between her teeth. We all know what that feels like. To have a little bit of grit on your lettuce or whatever that hasn't been washed properly, it's just a horrible, horrible feeling. So elephants experience that on a much larger scale, I should imagine, on a daily basis. There you go. The mom and her baby have come back together now. Baby gave us a little bit of attitude a little bit earlier, but that's to be expected from young elephants. They love to think that they are the size of their mothers from the tender age of, I don't know, let's call this guy maybe a year old or a year and a half, 2 years. It's always quite hard to give an age on these things. I always admire people that will confidently tell you exactly how old an elephant is without asking them. It's quite rude. But yeah, they reunited again, just feeding peacefully together here, enjoying the afternoon. There's a couple other elephants down in the riverbed in front of them where you see all that green in the background. That's the Mashutton River back there. It's a dry riverbed, so it's not flowing at the moment. I wish it did flow all year long. That would be beautiful. But I think the rest of the herd is down in the riverbed, maybe a little bit towards the right of where these two are now. And I can actually see another one back there. So a nice little herd moving through. And remember, this is what we would call a breeding herd, folks. So no full-grown males are really permitted in herds like this. It's only really adolescent males that you would find here, maybe 16, 17-year-old at the maximum. And it's around about that age where they'll start getting pushed away from the herds. So it is a lady, the ladies are in charge. It's female power, lady power. And it's a matriarchal system, and it works really well for them. So maybe us as humans, we could learn a little thing or two about that, or from them. Generally what will happen is when one of those females that is part of this herd goes into estrus, she will start to emit pheromone, and that will attract all the males from around that obviously get attracted to that scent or to that sense of pheromone that they are picking up, and start getting drawn towards her. And when there is a big male with these herds, it can become a little bit tedious because the herd is on edge. They're not too sure who this guy is. He's much bigger than them, and it can often make the ladies a little bit more nervous, maybe a little bit more erratic. At the same time, the male is often can be a little bit more aggressive in those situations, particularly if they're in something that we call muss, which is that over-secretion of testosterone that all male elephants go through to make themselves mating ready. It makes them, basically it drives them to find a female to mate with. It just fills them with testosterone and gets them focused on one thing and one thing only. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this beautiful little duo, mom and baby. We're going to try to drive around there and see if we can see the rest of the herd as they peacefully feed through the bush. So yeah. Right guys, so this is the Mashatan River that we are sitting in at the moment at a very special spot called Tabbys Crossing. And there's the quintessential radio for you all, called Tabbys Crossing, this little area that goes through here. And that's because there was once quite a famous lioness named Tabby. It was part of the Mashatan Pride back then. This is going back decades now. Who used to give birth in this area here, where people used to come and see her quite often with her cubs, and that led to a succession of her daughters giving birth here and her sisters and so forth and so on. So it's a very special little crossing, this, for people from a few years ago or yesteryear. And yeah, unfortunately Tabby's no longer around, but her crossing is here, her namesake is still here. So this is Tabbys Crossing. But the main reason why I wanted to stop here is to show you that this is quite a small little river. It's the Mashatan River. It's a very pretty river. It flows very easily. I mean, you can chuck a bucket of water into this river and it flows. So once we do have like a little bit of rain, maybe just a small thunderstorm, this river does often pick up a little bit. But you would not believe how high the water can actually get when this floods. And to demonstrate how high it can get, I'm going to walk around and show you. So just check this out. So I'm about 6 foot tall, about. Maybe that much less, but for this little river, if you look above me here, you can see this tree, which is a young leadwood tree, has got all of this brush that's been pushed up against it, and that is how high the river flows. So I'd say that's what, about an extra 3/4 of me going up, so let's say it's probably about 10 foot, maybe 11 foot high that the water flows going through here. So you can imagine how beautiful, how much of a torrent this looks like when it is actually flowing like that, when it is flooding like that, just all the way up there and just going for it, pushing all the trees up against this. And that particular high water mark that you see there is from our last bit of rain, or our last big bit of rain that we had, sure, was it last year or this year? Can't remember, but it was like 160 mils that fell in this area over about 48 hours, so about 2 days. So huge amounts of rain for this part of the world. I know for all of you in England, you're like, oh, that's not very much rain, but for us, it was a lot. And this river just flowed and flowed and flowed. So did the river outside Tula. So did the next river over called the Zebenin. And those rivers flowed to such an extent that we couldn't actually get transfer vehicles in and out. And so we had to get a couple of helicopters to get our guests out to catch international flights that day. But luckily, we don't have to cross this river to get to Tula. But it is always awesome to stop and to see just how powerful nature can be in such a small little river. So if you can imagine the much bigger river in front of Tula, what that looks like when it's flowing, in comparison, it's always quite impressive to me to just think about these things. And to see it in person, because we do get to see it, is pretty awe-inspiring itself. But anyway, let's go catch up with the rest of those elephants and see what they're getting up to. a whole bunch of elephant butts. Even their backsides are pretty fun to look at. But always nice to see all the little tots next to their respective moms. Cute, man. Look at this little baby. Going to catch up to his mom quickly. All of 10 yards away from her, but you know, that's a scary place to be. Pretty safe being right next to your mom. I mean, look at the size of her. It's like having a 24/7 personal security guard. You're always going to get your way when you got that with you. Unless, of course, you want something from her. But she can get rather fed up pretty quickly. But always enjoyable to spend time with baby elephants. See him just scratching his back ankle there or trying to step over the branch, something like that. Ridiculously clumsy little creatures when you see them trying to keep up with their mom, particularly when she's in full stride, walking quite quickly. And you see this little guy taking about 4 or 5 steps for every one of hers, just trying to maintain contact with her. But even at that pace, you can see he's walking quite quickly, whereas she's just lumbering along. But, yeah, nice to catch up with the rest of the herd. I'd probably say there's about 30 elephants here, so always nice to come across such a big, vibrant herd of elephants. And we will reposition to see if we can get you guys a better view. But you don't always have to be close to the wildlife to enjoy them. In fact, sometimes when you're on safari, it's nice to get the faraway visual of them and just, you know, just observe them as opposed to being right up next to them. Ladies and gents, we have some very special people with us today on old Scotchy and Glorvor's vehicle sitting here. We've got the Fulford family with us, and sorry, I forget your son's name? Matthew. I wanted to say hello to you, Matthew, so there you go. Say hello, guys.
Matt.
Hello, Matt. How are you?
Wish you were here.
There you go. Don't worry, Matt, you'll join us one day as soon as those international borders open, along with all the rest of you. We look forward to welcoming you back.
Thank you. Cheers.
So while I take photos here in the background, I'm sure you can hear the clackety-clack. We've got a little baby elephant who's just having a whale of a time, busy rolling around in the dust there. And he's been screaming and shouting in the background while we've been enjoying other elephants. But now that we get up close and personal, we can see that he is just having a good old back scratch while, you know, rolling in the dust. And the elephants do like to roll in the dust. Obviously the bigger elephants, they find it a bit hard to roll around. So what they do is they'll kick the soil or the sand into a little pile and then they scoop it with their teeth and they throw it over their back. But when you're just a baby elephant, it's pretty easy to roll over, lie down, have a good roll around, enjoy yourself. So you watch, excuse me, watch of that beautiful dust balding. You can see the one female there is actually scooping sand up, as I was just saying, and throwing that on her back. So look out for the dust plumes there. Little guy's still just enjoying himself on the ground there. His buddy's coming to join him now, little cousin there. Or and this is what I love about elephants, folks. There's always just something so fun about them. They're always up to something. There's never a dull moment when you're around elephants. Look at those two pipsqueaks down there. Hope you guys really enjoyed that little elephant sand barking. They really enjoy it. It's always fun to watch the little carts rolling around in the sand, and Mom as well throwing sand all over the show. We try to quickly get around to get the sun on the other side. It's always good to get backlighting. Whenever you see an animal using dust or dusting themselves, birds, elephants, zebra, whatever it might be, as a photographer, always ask your guide if he hasn't already or she hasn't already done it to get you onto the opposite side of where the sun is, just because you're going to get that backlighting, that beautiful, beautiful glow coming through the sand. We kind of got around just in time to maybe get a little bit of that, but we could have definitely moved a bit quicker. Anyway, our elephant friends are now moving off into the distance here. They're probably going up towards Mashatan Dam, which is in this direction, maybe for a bit of an evening drink. But as the sun goes down over here, beautiful evening, great afternoon, myself and Britt wanted to sign off here and say thank you so much for joining us once again at Tanda Tula Sofa Safari. It's good to be back. Myself and Britt have been off for a couple of weeks, so thank you very much, Chad, for holding down the fort. Always doing such incredible stuff, Chad. Thank you very much. And yeah, for all of you that might be interested, please don't forget we also do have our new online shop for Tanda Tula, where you can buy some incredible images taken by Chad and some mediocre images taken by me. They go on sale every once in a while, so yeah, check that out. Every week we run a bit of a flash sale where you can get some photographs for 50% off. All right. And myself and Chad are also available to do some one-on-one sessions with you if you want to learn a bit more about photography, or if you just want to chat about the bush and learn something about the bush. Maybe you want to be a guide someday. So please go check that out and let us know, or make a booking or whatever it is. If you have any comments or questions or anything like that from this particular episode, please feel free to drop them in the comments below, and we'll happily try and get back to you, or maybe even back to you in the next episode. But yeah, for another week of Tanda Tula Sofa Safari, see you next time, guys. Cheers.